Hey, what's up everybody, Nexel here. Today we are playing Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, and this will be a video just talking about this Moon Gem Challenge quest. Now, let me say this right out the door, just in case you aren't able to stick around for the whole video. This quest can't be done by just anyone. It cannot be done just through sheer willpower and strategy alone, because the way this boss works is that it has an attack that will instantly knock you out. So no matter what you do, no matter how hard you turtle, no matter how much you decrease that boss's defense, it still might not be enough to allow you to continue surviving turn after turn. So you can't just put this thing on auto and then, like, you know, go jog for 30 minutes and come back and then it's dead. Like, this thing just has an attack that will instantly knock you out. So unless you have some sort of means of infinitely reviving, this might not be for you. I know a lot of people might be coming to this video wondering, is it possible without the Warrior of Light? And I want to say my answer is yes. I just personally don't have the medals for completing this thing without the Warrior of Light. I feel like that medal is just so OP for where it's at right now. It's pretty much future-proof for the next few months unless they create some sort of new medal. Like if Senna creates a medal that can somehow outdo the Warrior of Light, which gives upright defense down. Like, that thing is just a beast. So even like with Hercules B, it still might not be enough. With Hercules B with Ariel on it, maybe. I haven't been able to test it just because I don't have the medal. So with that being said, you know, I don't mean to start off on like a sad point, but I really don't want anyone wasting their time if it's just not doable. Like, I don't want you guys doing what I did last night, testing just a bunch of setups for like 2 hours, trying to figure out what works best in order to help you survive while at the same time trying to do damage. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the boss before we go into it. Kind of like an early raid boss meeting. Like, for anyone who played MMORPGs, you kind of like talk about the raid boss a bit before going in and actually fighting it. So I want to give a shout out to a person in the Facebook group that I'm in. I believe his name was Andrew Vo. He had a guide about how he beat it. He did use the Warrior of Light, but the rest of the notes were applicable to pretty much anyone who doesn't have the Warrior of Light. So let me go through the notes before we actually go into the boss fight and talk about, you know, this raid boss plan, you know, in real time. Okay, so the first thing is that the boss is going to use a set amount of attacks for each turn. So for the first turn, the 5th turn, and the 9th turn, this boss is going to use a breath attack that will instantly knock you out, because the amount of damage it does to you is just so high that no amount of defense boost, no amount of general defense up, no amount of PSM defense up, or no amount of general defense down. Wait, let me reword that. No amount of general strength down on the enemy is going to save you. That breath attack is just too strong, and there's really not much we as players can do about it. Continuing off of the breath attack, the boss has a counter on it, so it's got a 20 hit counter. So every single, I'm sorry, not a 20 hit counter, but like a 20 metal counter. So every single metal you hit the boss with, regardless if it's a special attack, or it's going to be a multi-hit, or it's just a tap, it's going to decrease the counter by 1. Once that counter hits 0, you're going to get hit with a breath attack. And like we said earlier, that breath attack is enough to knock you out no matter what its general strength is and no matter what your defense is. No matter how much you've buffed yourself or debuffed the enemy, that breath attack is capable of knocking you out. Otherwise, on turns 2, 3, 4, and 6, 7, 8, the boss is going to use an attack that's going to like drop egg bombs on you, and it's also going to increase its PSM strength and potentially its PSM defense by either +2 or +4. That's going to become a little bit more relevant when we start talking about our medal selection. So know that it follows that general scheme of turn 1, it's going to use breath, that'll knock you out. HP recovery 1 on your pet should be able to bring you back. And then turns 2, 3, and 4, it's going to use an egg attack, which can potentially buff itself. On turn 5, it's going to use its second breath attack, which is going to knock you out. Again, there's really nothing that can be done about that. And then second chance should bring you back. Then you have turns 6, 7, 8, which are going to be the egg drop attack. You're able to survive it with the right setup but on turn 9, it uses that breath attack, knocking you out with no second chances or HP recovery to bring you back. So you pretty much have a total of 9 turns to take this thing out with a maximum turtling setup. So let's go ahead, keep going down. So the metals that are necessary for like pretty much this perfect turtling method are what you see right here. So the first one is going to be a Dispel metal. Now that's important because, as I said earlier, with that egg dropping attack, it's going to increase its PSM strength up by a minimum of 2, if not plus 4. For turns 2, 3, and 4, I've only seen it go up by 2 at any one point, so plus 2 PSM strength. But after that second breath, after I got revived by second chance, it can either be plus 2 or plus 4. And at plus 4, that egg attack is able to knock you out no matter what your defense is and no matter what its attack is. The egg drop bomb attack is just too strong at that point to be able to survive. So that's why the Dispel is important, because the buffs will stack. So if it gets plus 2 PSM strength on one turn, uses the egg drop move again, it's going to get plus 2 more. That's going to bring it up to plus 4 PSM strength, and that's when you get knocked out. So that defensive metal is just important for removing those buffs to make sure you keep surviving. The next 2 metals, I know this is kind of disheartening for some people, but I have to say you really need upright strength or upright defense to get past this boss. The thing is just way too strong. It has so much health and it's got like a super high defensive value. So you really need something that has like multi-buffering capabilities. I tried this thing with Kingdom Hearts 0.2 Kairi that had even double cast on it, and then a minus, I believe I also tried it with a DuckTales metal, which gave the minus 7 defense. It still wasn't enough. So you really need the upright buffs or the reverse buffs if you're able to think of a setup that'll work. You really need those to get you past this mission. So I know that's kind of disheartening to say, but let that be your first indicator. If you don't have it, then maybe this quest isn't worth wasting your time on, because I spent 2 hours just trying to run and gun this thing with different defensive setups without using the Warrior of Light, and as you may have noticed earlier, I haven't gotten the objectives down, meaning that for those 2 hours of testing, I wasn't able to think of a setup that was able to take this thing out. So the upright buff is just really useful, and it's like necessary in order to beat this quest. Not only that, but those 2 metals serve as HP recovery and SP recovery. So you need the HP recovery just because every time the boss knocks you out with its breath attack, you come back with only 1 HP. And even if you attack the boss, get some of those orbs back, heal a little bit of HP, the bombs will be strong enough to knock you out unless you have that HP recovery going for you, unless you bring yourself back up to max HP. So you need an HP recovery medal, and then you'll also need an SP recovery medal, just because the medals you choose might cost a lot of gauges. So as you can see here, the Alice is going to be 2 gauges, the Key Art Beginnings, it's going to be 2 gauges, the HD Zexion is going to be 3 gauges, and then the HD Sora and Kairi X is going to be 4 gauges, but it's going to restore 3, so it's effectively 1 gauge. So all that combined is already like a minimum of 11 gauges needed per turn, but I get 1 back, so it's really like 8 gauges. So you need an SP recovery medal to make sure that you're able to consistently pull off those moves. The Alice you don't need every turn, so maybe it's really like 6 gauges for 1 turn, but the idea is that you need to be able to activate the special attacks when you need them. So we talked about the Dispel, we talked about the buffers, the HP recovery, the SP recovery. The next thing you're going to need in order to pull off a perfect turtling setup is going to be these next 2 metals. So you'll either need this HD Zexion. Well, you're gonna need it actually. It's really not that optional, to be honest with you. You're gonna need it with either extra attack, or you're gonna need to be able to copy it with something like the HD Nominee. And the reason behind that is because that is the bare minimum of increasing your defense and decreasing the enemy's strength in order to stay alive. So if you don't have a bare minimum of that, pair of metals, then odds are you're not going to have enough defense to continue on. Like, even with HPO, I tried Hainer Pencilette, I tried Pootigger Rabbit. Neither of the two worked as effectively as this. I did see some success with HPO, with Hainer Pencilette, with other people, but I personally didn't have too much success with it just because the person who had HPO also had a Scrooge McDuck, which I don't have, so I can't even test that one. But again, this is the bare minimum for defensive capability in order to survive the egg drop bomb attack. Lastly, the last metal you're going to need is going to be some sort of tanking metal, some sort of metal that will do a lot of damage. And when I mean a lot of damage, you need that thing to pretty much act as like a nuclear missile aiming for this assault dragon's head. Like, whatever that last metal is in combination with the other metals you use, you need to deal with a perfect turtling setup. You need to deal about 560 bars of health per turn, otherwise you might not be able to take this thing out. So with that being said, that is my description of the metals I used. What else do we need to talk about before going into the boss fight itself? Okay, so without any sort of turtling setup, the boss has 5,038 HP bars. So without any sort of turtling, without attempting to survive the turns, you have a maximum of 3 turns in order to take this thing out, meaning you'll need to do about 1,679 bars of health per turn. With the turtling effect, and with it working at maximum capacity without the boss getting that +4 PSM strength in order to make its bombs destroy you, you get a total of 9 turns. And in order to knock out the boss, you need to deal a minimum of like 560 bars of health per turn with a perfect turtling setup in order to knock this thing out without needing to continue. Lastly, before we go into this boss fight, even with a full turtling setup, you're gonna need some sort of counter increaser so that the boss doesn't drop to 0 on its hit counter. I'm sorry, not on its hit counter. I keep calling it a hit counter. It's like a metal counter, so like attacks counter, if that's what you want to call it. You got to make sure that doesn't drop to 0, because if it does, it's going to use its breath attack, and again, that breath attack is just so strong it can knock you out immediately. So you need some sort of either counter resetter or counter increaser, and that's why that HD Sora and Kyrie EX is there, because it not only does damage, it not only adds buffs, it also resets the counter. So that is all the notes I have on taking out this boss. I haven't beaten it yet, meaning that even this setup isn't enough. But let me go ahead and show you in practice all those things that we talked about coming together in order to show you like a perfect turtling setup. Okay, so the first turn, obviously the boss doesn't have any buffs, so you can go ahead and just tap away on this Alice. You don't need to dispel anything. Next, we're going to do some buffing here. We're at max HP, max SP, so we don't need to heal any of that stuff. Next, we're going to start our defensive wall. So we are going to give ourselves the plus, I believe it's +4 PSM defense here, and then give the boss -2 general attack down, while also giving it -2 general defense down. And then we used our HD Sora and Kyrie EX to not only reset the counters, but to do damage. Now, as you saw there, we did not hit that 560 that I was talking about, meaning that it's very unlikely that this setup is going to be able to take out this boss. So that's kind of an indicator right now for me to be like, alright, I'm not going to keep testing the setup all the way, I'm not going to waste my time, I'm going to go back and think of other setups that could potentially do more damage. Alright. So we got hit with the breath attack, and after the breath attack, the boss doesn't gain any buffs. So you should just be able to, again, tap away on the Alice, and then we'll hit our auto button and get our HP recovery going on, get our SP recovery going on, and do our buffing at the same time. Alright, so now we're going to keep building our defensive wall, adding onto the buffs from the last turn, because HD Zexion gives you that PSM defense for 2 turns. So at this point, after this HD Zexion, I'm at +7 PSM defense. So let's take a look there. All right, there it is. The plus 7 PSM defense. Let's get past this. There it is. All right, so there's my defense. So now we're going to activate our tanking metal, which, again, we know doesn't do enough damage. We know it doesn't do 560 bars of health, even combined with the other ones. All right, so there it is. This is where our turtling starts to pay off, because that egg attack is not strong enough to take you out. It's not strong enough to take you out if you have that dual casted HC Zexion, which decreases its attack and increases your defense. So again, that's the bare minimum for staying alive and turtling. Now, as you can see, the boss did gain that plus 2 PSM strength that we were talking about, and if it activates again, that's enough to take us out. So we got to dispel that. We got to get rid of that. Otherwise, it's going to come back to bite us. We continue again with the same setup we've always been doing, increasing our health back to normal, increasing our SP back to full. That way we can keep using our special skills. So we build up our wall again, and at this point, because we used Dispel, we did lose that minus general attack, but it's more important to stay alive. It is more important to keep on trucking rather than worrying about the damage too much. So it used the egg attack again, and as you can see, it is going to get that plus 2 PSM strength, and when you think about it, if we didn't dispel it, that would be plus 4, and that egg attack would have been enough to take us out. I'll move my camera just a little bit to show you guys. So that's how much the egg attack did. It takes me to less than half health, so it would be just too strong if it was if we didn't dispel it. So we're gonna go ahead and dispel it again, and then keep going. So I believe that was turn 3. Let me actually check that. I can check by going to info. At the bottom of the info, it's turn 4. So like I said, the breath attack comes at turns 1, turn 5, and turn 9. So we should be getting hit with an egg bomb attack here, and we should be able to survive the same way we survived turns 2 and 3. We go in with our tank. The tank does some damage, just not enough damage, which is unfortunate. So here it is, end of 4th turn. We're going to get hit with the egg bombs, and we're going to survive similarly to how we did the past 2 rounds. So we dispel, get rid of that PSM strength, we buff, restore, do all that work with the Kyrie EX there. And then we continue to build our wall and hit it with our super strong metal. So let's build up our wall, let's get some defensive capability going, and then we'll hit it with our strong metal. Alright, so this is turn 5, so we're going to get hit with the breath attack here. And there it is, the breath attack, which no matter how much defense you've got, that thing's just going to take you out. Like, it just requires, oops, whoa, I messed that up. It requires like an insane amount of defense in order to survive that. So I messed up because I used the Alice when I shouldn't have. There was no reason to do the Alice there because the breath attack, again, does not give the boss any buffs. So we will go in, again, building up our wall, and then hitting it with our strong metal. If anyone has Hercules B with aerial, let me know how that goes, because I'm kind of curious to see if that's enough when you combine it with this setup. Okay, so it did use the egg drop attack, and we didn't die, so it didn't get plus 4 PSM strength, but it did give itself plus 2 PSM strength and plus 2 PSM defense. So in order to make sure we're still attacking it for a good amount of damage, let's dispel that, and that also makes sure that we live if it ever hits us with another egg drop attack. Again, buffing, healing, and then we start up our wall again in order to stay alive if it uses the egg drop attack and only gets plus 2 PSM strength. And then we go in again with our tanking metal. Again, just knowing that it doesn't hit 560 bars of health, meaning that it's not enough. Alright, here it is, the egg drop attack again. So it did not get the plus 4 PSM strength, which happens randomly. So we continue to live. We keep going. So we dispel, get rid of that, and then we're going to heal and get our SP back. And also increase its counters. So Kyrie EX is also a great way to increase the counters to make sure it doesn't hit that 0. Because again, at 0, it's going to breath attack you, and that's it. Which kind of stinks. So we're building up our wall again, and we're going to hit it with the tank. I forgot what turn this is. I don't remember if it's 8. I want to say this is turn 8. Okay. So, we get hit with the eggs again. And as you can see, it's only +2 PSM strength and defense right now. So we are good. This is turn 9. So again, at the bottom, you can see it's turn 9. Meaning that at the end of this turn, no matter what we do, we're going to get knocked out. Because we already used our HP recovery 1. We used our second chance 3. So this is pretty much all we got left. And my screen is lagging, but it looks... Oh gosh, it's lagging hardcore. Alright. So we did our buffs. And we are going to continue building our wall to hit it with our tank as the last metal. And we should be getting hit with a breath attack this turn. Alright, see there it is, the breath attack. And then we're done. So that's all we could do. So even with the setup I just used, even though it's like a perfect turtling method, because the metals weren't strong enough, maybe I wasn't, like, I need to try it with different setups, like putting the HC Zexion on Moogle of Glory, where it can get a little bit more defense going on, or I'm sorry, a little bit more like damage output going on. I need to test more things, but pretty much that's going to be the general flow of how this boss is going to work. You can either completely just run and gun the thing, go in guns blazing, and try and do that, what was it, 1,679 bars per turn with something like the Warrior of Light, having it double casted, or even triple casted. So you can do that. Or with the turtling method that I just showed you right now, you can buy yourself some more turns and do more damage. So I said it a little bit earlier, if anyone has Hercules B that's max guilted with like AB5 max, SP1 or something like that, and Aerial, let me know how that works out for you, because I'm really curious to know how that works out. So I said it in the last video, and I know this video is getting long, but let's go ahead and cancel this, because the objectives are to complete the quest without continuing. So if we continued there, it's like we wouldn't have gotten the rewards anyways, so there's no point in attempting to continue. So I talked about it in the last video, and it kind of seems trolly on the staff's part to release this board at the same time. So it has defense boost 3 max and then attack boost 5 max, gauge 0. It really feels like those two skills were included in there to help with this Moon Gem challenge. So I'm not really sure what to say. I wouldn't buy the avatar board specifically to beat that quest unless you knew for sure that you'd be able to beat it, because otherwise you'd spend 2,500 jewels and then potentially not beat it, and you're stuck with skills that are good. Don't get me wrong, the skills are really good, but if you bought them with the intention of beating the Moon Gem challenge, make sure that you're 100% able to do it. Literally sit down, crank out the math, make sure that your defense boost 3 max would help you survive a certain number of hits. Just know that, again, no matter what you do for defense boosts, you're always going to get knocked out by that breath attack. It's just way too strong. And then the attack boost 5 max, gauge 0 is going to help with making sure you have those consistent attacks going off every turn. So let's say you can only spare like an illustrated Kyrie EX and you want the rest of the metals to be damage metals. That means you're only getting 5 SPs returned, 5 SP bars returned per turn. So this gauge 0 can really help with you being able to consistently push out those special skills. So yeah, that's my analysis of the Moon Gem challenge, as well as some general tips to helping you like turtle through it if you're able to beat it within 9 turns. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to throw them in the comments below and I will try my best to answer them. Best of luck to everyone. This challenge is definitely not meant for all. I'm trying to think of multiple setups that can beat this thing without actually using the Warrior of Light, but so far, as you can see, I've had no success. So if you have success without the Warrior of Light, drop it in the comments below, and I would love to share that information with the community, so please, please, please drop that comment below if you were able to beat this thing without the Warrior of Light. Spread some awareness on how to beat this boss, and if everyone can get the rewards, everyone gets the rewards, which would be super awesome. With that being said, that's the end of this video, guys. Until next time, take it easy.